This happened just last year. I was going to be meeting up with a friend in the city. I lived almost 10 minutes away from downtown, which is where I was going. So I left my apartment and started driving on the road. My apartment was on this really quiet street. And I remember that as I was driving there was a car behind me. I noticed it because the car was red, so it stood out a little bit. Of course, I didn't think that I was being followed at first. I went on my way to the city. And I wasn't even looking behind me for most of the way. But when I left the highway to take an exit for downtown, I noticed that the same red car was behind me. I thought that it was strange, but maybe just a coincidence. After making it into the city, I accidentally made a wrong turn. Driving in downtown can be very confusing. Even though I had the directions on my phone, I would still make mistakes in the city sometimes. So I had to go around and head back. I did notice that the red car behind me did the exact same thing. And that seems really suspicious. So now I was worried that this car was following me. But I didn't know why. I was also trying to drive in the city, which was hard enough. I had to go to the end of the street and then turn. When I did, the red car did as well. I wasn't so sure if I wanted to stop and park and get out of my car if somebody was following me. But then I got lucky. Or so I thought. The street that I came onto was pretty busy with a lot of other cars. It was almost stop-and-go traffic. I was able to sort of get away from the red car, because there were so many others. I may have cut somebody off and changed lanes a little bit much. But soon I got ahead of the red car. There were several cars in between us, and I was feeling better about it. Then I had to make another turn. And I didn't see the red car behind me anymore. Moments later, I arrived at where I was parking. I was able to find a few open spaces on the side of the road, and I took one. After parking, I started to get out of my car. And then I noticed the red car. It was parallel parking on the side of the road, just a few spaces behind me. My heart sank. I decided to go to the spot that I was meeting my friend. I would just have to walk a couple of blocks. So after leaving my car, I started quickly walking down the sidewalk. Before I made it around the corner though, I looked back. When I did, I saw a man leave the red car and start walking in my direction. He was wearing a black jacket and also sunglasses. I continued to go towards my destination. I checked over my shoulder every minute or so. The man followed me all the way there. But he didn't get closer to me. He remained a good distance back. After arriving, I met my friend and told her about what was going on. I pointed the man out to her. Now where we were, there was a number of other people around. My friend suggested that we go and confront the guy. He couldn't do anything with all these people around. So we both started to approach him. He was just kind of standing around in the corner, looking inconspicuous. When we got within maybe 30 feet of him, he turned and started walking away. I thought then that he was gone. We then went back and forgot all about him. So several hours later, I was leaving. I walked back to my car, and by now it was nighttime. But as I was starting to get inside of my car, I noticed that the red car was still there. I stopped and did not get inside of my car. Instead, I turned and started walking in the other direction. I heard a car door opening, and they noticed that the guy was getting out of his car. I couldn't believe that he had been there the entire time. Once again, he started walking in my direction. Now I started to walk on the sidewalk just to get away from the guy. I kept going and was hoping to get to a busier street. The particular sidewalk that we were on was now quiet at this time of night. The man stayed a ways back. I turned a corner and reached a slightly busier street. And that's when I saw a police car. It was parked on the side of the road with an officer inside of it. I'd walked straight for the car. When I arrived, I said hi to the officer and told him what was going on. I looked and noticed the man going back around the corner. The police officer then walked with me to my car. When we got near, the red car drove away. After that, I was able to get home without being followed. And I haven't seen the guy or the red car since. I still don't know how to explain it. I'm not sure why he was following me. It was very creepy. This happened a couple of years ago when I was on a road trip. I was traveling across about 5 states. So it was a bit of a long drive. I found myself traveling pretty late one night in almost the middle of nowhere. I was sort of winging it. And I would usually drive about as far as I could each day. Then at night, when I got really tired, I would just stop in the next town and find a hotel. I would ask if they had any rooms, and then I would get one and sleep for the night. So anyways, it was pretty late, but I wasn't too tired yet. I wasn't really near any cities either. And after some time, I was really thirsty. So I saw rest stop up ahead. I took the exit from the highway and I pulled in. The rest stop was right off the highway, and it was a smaller one. There were just one row of parking spaces. And maybe 2 or 3 other cars were there when I arrived. So I parked, got out, and went inside of this little building. After getting something to drink, I left the building. Just as I did, I saw this car pulling into a parking space, pretty close to where my car was. I thought nothing of it, and I walked in my vehicle. Then I got inside and started up my car. The car park just a few spaces away from mine was running, and the driver was still inside. As soon as I started backing up, I noticed the car backing up as well. I began driving away with the car now behind me. I did think that was a little bit odd with it leaving literally right after me. Plus, it didn't seem like the driver had even got out to go into the rest stop. Because I knew the car wasn't there. When I got there, I got back onto the highway, which was pretty quiet by now, with it being late. The car drove right behind me on the road. It didn't take me long at all to wonder if this guy was intentionally following me. So to put it to the test, I started driving pretty slow. I think I was going at least 5 miles per hour under the speed limit. The car that was driving behind me did not bother to pass, but instead kept going behind me. I went down the highway for about 20 or 30 minutes, the entire time the car stayed right on my tail. I was really surprised by this. I couldn't think of any reason as to why somebody would want to follow me. I got tired of it. And we're still basically in the middle of nowhere. So when I saw another sign for a rest stop, I decided to go to this one as well. I slowed down and took the exit. This one was much like the one that I had been to earlier. After going off the highway, the car followed me, which is what I was afraid of. Then I didn't bother to stop at all. I drove right through the rest area and then went back onto the highway. The car that was following me did the exact same thing. After that, I didn't really know what else to do. I felt like any place that I went, the car would follow me. So for a while, I just kept going down the highway. I probably went for another 20 minutes with the guy behind me for the entire time. Then finally, the idea came to me to drive to a police station. I remembered it from somewhere that that's what you're supposed to do when you're being followed. Except I was in the middle of nowhere. I took up my phone and quickly searched for a police station. Thankfully, I had service. There was a police station a little ways up the road and off the highway. I put in the directions and then followed them. Within a few minutes, I took an exit from the highway. The car behind me did the same. Then I drove on this quieter road for a short time and then arrived in a small town. And finally, there was a police station. I went into the parking lot. And the car started to drive in after me. That made me worried. But then in one motion, the car turned around, completely making a U-turn. Then it left the parking lot and went back onto the road. I decided to go into the police station and just report what had happened. After that, I looked for a hotel. It was very late, and I was able to find one in the same city. After that, I never saw the car again. I was able to continue with my road trip. However, I will always wonder who that was following me and why they were doing it. This happened back in 1996. I was driving home from work one night, It was kind of late at night, and I lived in a house that was roughly 20 minutes away. So I remember that after leaving work, I was driving down the road, and this car came up behind me. It was still pretty early on in the drive. However, I didn't suspect the car to be following me until maybe 5 minutes after this. When I turned 2 more times, the car remained with me. I'm not sure when this car started following me, if it was right when I left work, or afterwards. However, I did not recognize the vehicle. And I didn't know who this could be. None of my co-workers lived by my house. This car was a white sedan, and it just looked pretty average for the most part. I really couldn't tell who was driving. I kept going back home. And I just hoped that the car would stop following me at some point. At first, I was thinking that this had to be a mistake. Maybe the driver of the car thought that I was somebody else. Or maybe there was a chance that they weren't actually following me. By the time I had made it to my street, though, the car was still there. And my street was generally pretty quiet. So when I got there, I really didn't know what else to do. So I drove to my house. My plan was to go into the driveway, and then go inside and hope that nobody chased after me or anything. But when I reached my house before going in the driveway, I slowed down significantly. When I did, the car behind me got right up really close. It became pretty obvious that they were likely going to pull into my driveway after me. So then I just stopped in the road. I didn't think that it would be a good idea to go into my driveway anymore. As soon as my car stopped, I saw in my rearview mirror multiple doors to the car behind me opening. It looked to be just about every door except for the driver's. 3 men then got out of the car, and all of them at once started walking in my direction. As soon as I saw this, my instant reaction was to drive away. I hit the gas and started moving. The men were able to just about reach my car. But then they stopped when I was moving away fast enough. After that, the car behind me started to move forward towards me. But then it quickly stopped. Then the men raced over and started getting back inside of the car. I tried to use this to my advantage and drive as quickly as I could to the end of the street. By the time I reached the end, though, I could see the car catching back up with me. And because there was really nobody else out on the road, it would be difficult to lose this guy. So I knew that I couldn't go back to my house at this point. And I decided to just drive around. I really didn't know what to do or where to go. It was late at night. And all of my family and friends were probably asleep. And remember, this was '96. So I didn't have a cell phone. So I went back out onto another road with this car right behind me. I was able to soon get onto a nearby busier road. But there was still nobody else out driving the car with at least 4 men, and it was staying right behind me. I drove down this road for probably another 10 minutes. Then I saw something that caught my eye. There was a gas station up ahead that appeared to be open. And not only that, but there were what looked like 2 cars getting gas. I knew that I had to go there, and I pulled off the road. And then there was a quieter one before the gas station. The car behind me followed on to the quieter road. But when I pulled into the gas station, the car behind me did not. I went right behind another car that was getting gas. Then I got out and looked around for where the car that had been following me went. I saw that the car turned its lights off and was parked on the side of the quiet road that the gas station was on. I realized that they were probably waiting for me to leave. I was happy to see that none of them were getting out of the car though. So I went inside of the gas station. Then I went to the employee behind the counter, and I asked him to call the police. After that I waited inside for them to arrive. But sometime between when I went inside the gas station to when the police got there, the car left. It was maybe 5 to 10 minutes of a wave. When they got there though, I went outside and saw that the car was gone. I told the police what had happened. There wasn't much that could be done though. After the police left, I was able to drive back home and luckily didn't see the car again. I've always wondered why those guys were following me. I didn't recognize any of them. And I don't know what they could have possibly wanted. I'm really glad that they didn't catch me though.